Massachusetts, making his first appearance on television and making it a good one as he finished second, a distant second, but nevertheless he beat the rest of the field, and he'll be back today.
That's right. Him and Joe took all the skin money last week. Shut two guys out, so he did bowl very well for the first time on.
Yeah, that was a first. Two guys getting shut out of skins money last week thanks to Joe and Dave. They will be joined on today's show by Jim Woodsum from York Beach, Maine, and Joe Rollins from Nottingham, New Hampshire, and we will be back with all the action here on Candlepin Skins right after this break. Don't go away. All right, here we go. Joe Rollins to get things started today. And Jim Woodsum.
Nice shot by Joe Rollins, spare in the first. And Jim Woodsum worked out for a 9 after starting with the spread eagle.
Here's Joe's spare.
1, 3, 7, and 10. Nicely done. Dave Driscoll on lane 30. Joe Ashline will be on 29.
Pretty good ball by Dave, but didn't carry a lot in the back. That one carried a lot. Very reminiscent of last week, wouldn't you say?
I was going to say, have we left last week? Or whoa, what a spare!
Oh, my.
Oh.
Great start here. A couple of fine spares and this strike to win the skin for Joe Ashline. Wow, two great shots for spares, and then Joe tops them with the strike.
Spare for Jim Woodsum.
His first mark. And that'll be a 6 for Joe Rollins. Oh, a double strike. Joe Ashline had a triple strike to end last week's show, and he starts today with a double. Wow. He had 6 strikes last week, and he's got 2 to start today. This has just been an unbelievable display. Joe Ashline. $8 for Dave Driscoll. Joe takes another skin with another bomb, and here it is.
And there's just nothing cheap about any of them. I mean, that was one of the slower ones. They had to wait for the 4-pin to go down.
Joe Rollins back in the pocket, and he nearly drops them all. Jim Woodsum with a pretty good hit, and he'll carry the extra pin, getting an 8 on his spare. No, and no again, and no a third time. It's still no. And Jim goes by. $10 for Joe. We have 2 Joes on today's show, so we'll try and make sure to make the distinction each time.
We have Joe R. and Joe A.
Joe A, not to be confused with Joe A, who used to play for the Bruins. Joe Ashline now on a double strike.
3.
Oh, give it to him. Oh, give it to him. Come on. Wow. How about it? Ooh, Dave Driscoll trying to make another spectacular spare. Not this time. But that spare for Joe Ashline is good for another skin, as Joe is picking up right where he's left off the last 2 weeks. He had $225 in skins money 2 weeks ago and $325 last week. And he's got the first 30 here. I think maybe Joe decided, hey, I like that from last week where I finished first and everybody else battled out for second. Shaping up the same way right now. Jim Woodsum for the spare? No. Joe gets his. He missed a single last time, but doesn't miss this one. And Jim will take 9. So Joe Ashline with 3 marks in a row. He's won all the skins. He's got a 20-pin lead plus this first ball, 22-pin lead plus over his nearest competitor. What, only 7?
Yeah, in the 7, 9, 10.
Dave Driscoll will have a split also. Oh, Joe almost made that happen. I think he hit that wood right where he wanted to, right on the cap. It just didn't happen. So he'll have to take a 10, and what do you know? The skin will go to Joe Rollins. A $15 skin. Somebody besides Joe Ashline winning some money here.
Still a Joe, though. See a pattern developing here. Big fill for Joe Rollins.
Boy, that's 3 straight 9 drops for Joe.
And Woodsum, a little fall in the head pin. 2, 4, 7 left, 6, 10 on the right.
No, that's 2 out of 3 that Joe has missed. No, and Jim is robbed on the 4-pin. 10 for Joe. Joe Rollins. 10 for Jim Woodsum. It's a $15 skin here in the 5th. Dave Driscoll on the head pin, but can't break up the split. And another split for Joe Ashline. We may have a carryover here.
Ooh. Boy, good run by Dave Driscoll, almost converting that first spare. And we do have our first carryover.
So the 6 box will be worth $30. Dave takes 10. Joe takes 9, just to be different. But Joe has the big lead, 25 pins ahead of second place Joe Rollins as we come to the first break during the action here on Candlepin Skins. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Londonderry. Jim Woodsum. Finally something other than a split to shoot at least.
Triangle, 3, 5, and 6 for him. Joe Rollins off target to the left.
No. $10 for Jim. 10 for Joe. Lots to tell you about here on the program today. We'll start with a reminder that when you're here at the Londonderry Bowling Center, either to watch our taping sessions or to bowl on your own, you'll want to make time for a stop at Puzzles for some fine food, maybe a beverage. It's where we eat while we're here at the Londonderry Bowling Center. Puzzles, located right inside the building here at the Londonderry Bowling Center. And it's a 9 for Joe Ashline, and we're going to have another carryover with 10s. 9 for Dave Driscoll. So the 7th, with the double carryover, now worth $55. And Joe Rollins has that. There is a big ball for Jim Woodsum. That's the best ball he's thrown so far, clearly.
Everything but the 7-pin, and I don't know how the 7-pin was able to stay up, but it did. Joe Rollins too far right for the spare for Jim Woodsum.
Spare for Jim. And a 9 for Joe. So the spare leads for the skin, but Dave Driscoll and Joe Ashline still have a shot. Oh, Dave's right on the head pin, and he'll have a spare leave. Joe off target to the right.
Dave for the spare. The 4 and 8.
Ooh, chopped it. And will it go? No, in the corner, so give the skin to Jim Woodsum. His first, and it's worth $55. And a couple of 10s for Dave and Joe. Joe Ashline still in the lead, comfortably. Five fill for Jim Woodsum. All of a sudden, Joe Rollins is having trouble finding the head pin. Eight for Jim. 8 for Joe. Four of the 8 boxes, Joe, Rollins, and Jim have matched each other. That's why they're so close, just 2 pins apart. They each have 2 marks. Joe Ashline had 3 to start the game. He hasn't had one since. It's a long drought for Joe. 4 boxes. Good first ball by Dave Driscoll, and it's the 5-10.
No luck there, and even the wood's rolling off now. Let's see what Joe does with a 4-7, 4-6-7.
Nope, not enough an angle. Nope. Well, 8s are good for the skin right now. Well, there's at least 9 for Dave. 9 for Joe. Good for the skin if Dave converts this single in the corner. And he's got it for a $25 skin. So now everybody's on the board. That's Dave's first.
I had to give Dave a 10 there. I inadvertently gave him a 9, so he wins the skin with a 10. He should have 80 after 8 boxes.
Right. Again, Joe Rollins off target on the head pin, trying to figure out what the problem is. And Jim Woodsum with the opposite, right straight through the middle. Nice effort. It's a 9 for Joe Rollins.
It's a 96 and 9 for Jim.
They did it again. This is a $25 skin here in the 9th. Good first ball again for Dave Driscoll, drops 9. Dave with a chance for a skin here if he can convert this. And he will have the skin unless Joe Ashline can convert his shot. Let's see. Not quite. So give another $25 skin to Dave Driscoll. And Joe Ashline will settle for a 10.
And 123 through 9, so he has still got a comfortable lead. The other 3, just 8 pins separating them.
You know, it's interesting. You look at the scoreboard, Joe with 6 open frames in a row, but in that 6-box stretch, the other 3 bowlers each only have 1 mark. So they really haven't been able to make up much ground.
Got close to a strike for Jim Woodsum.
And the spare for Jim in the 10th. And a 10 for Joe in the 10th, giving him a 106. Jim Woodsum at 108 plus this ball. And he carries 8 for 116. He also leads for this $50 skin here in the 10th. Don't forget, tomorrow at noon, it'll be week 3 of our Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions, the 8th annual Tournament of Champions. Tomorrow at noon from Park Place Lanes in Wyndham. And a little bit later on today on this show, we'll tell you what's happening starting next Saturday from the Londonderry Bowling Center in our Saturday noon time slot. This will be our last. Oh, great cut shot. That's a spare that takes that skin away from Jim Woodsum. Great shot by Dave Driscoll. And the high five from Joe Ashline, who has to settle for a 7.
That spare in the first box by Dave Driscoll was quite a shot too, and
similar shot, in fact.
that was the 5, 7, 8, and that was what are those? The 3, 6, 4 maybe? 3, 4, 6.
And he doesn't have to shoot at this one. He'll take a 7 fill and a 114. So Dave settles in at 3rd place, but just 2 pins out of 2nd. That's held by Jim Woodsum right now. Joe Ashline in the lead at 130. We've got 1 game to go, and we're going to fill you in on what's going to be happening next Saturday. So stick around. Lots more to come here on Candlepin Skins. Everybody on the tote board in terms of Skins prize money in Game 1, with Jim Woodsum leading the way so far. But still lots more money to come here in Game 2, and Joe Rollins will get us started as we move into it. Joe right now in 4th spot, but he's only 10 pins out of 2nd. And of course, 2nd is what everybody looks for, because that's how you get back. Of course, in this case, it'll be several months in between, but...
Actually, Joe Ashline's within striking distance too. He was at over a 30-pin advantage at one time.
Right.
And they came back at him, and he only had 1 mark after opening with those double strike and spare in the first 3 boxes.
8 for Joe. Joe Rollins, that is. Jim Woodsum If you're a longtime viewer of our shows here on the Winds of New England, you might recognize Jim's name. He has not been with us for 8 years.
It's been that long. Wow.
And part of the reason for that is that Joe left the area for a while. He moved down to New York, serving in the U.S. Army, and worked in Brooklyn for a couple of years, moved around a little bit, came back. Now he's living in York Beach, Maine, and back with us here on the program. And he's got a 10 to start the second game. Dave Driscoll.
All right, grind it out, Dave. All right, get the other two. 2 sticks.
Trying to work this out for a 10.
So 10 spots up there for the skin.
Ashline taking dead aim, but it's a half Worcester. This is a carryover skin, by the way, worth $60. And Jim Woodsum has a 10 up there. Oh, look out. Oh, that close. Almost stole it. Now he can create another carryover with this single. Joe doesn't miss many of those. Does not miss many of those. So it's now a $70 third box, or rather second box here in game 2. 3-box carryover. And Joe Rollins, after a long drought, gets back on the head pin. And he'll have a chance at a spare.
No, sliding by.
And again, for a 9-box. Joe's had trouble with the singles today. Jim's had a lot of triangle leaves. Jim, by the way, is now retired from the U.S. Army, works as a letter carrier. He and his wife, Joanne, living in York Beach, Maine. I believe
shot.
Jim told me they're planning to move back to New Hampshire soon. Spare in the second on the triangle. So we have 3 different states represented on today's show: Mass, New Hampshire, and Maine.
Try by Dave Driscoll.
Nine for Dave.
Well, is he going to take this one away from Jim again?
$70 on the line, and this time Joe misses, and that will give a $70 skin to Jim Woodsum. And we just talked a minute ago about Joe not missing many of those, and he missed it twice. The Jim Woodsum, our overall skins prize money leader right now, $125 for him. And we go to the third box. Oh, great shot. Big spare right there for Joe Rollins as that ends a long drought for him.
Inside, the 1 to 3. The ball goes down, gets the 7, which it comes off the wall for the 8. Jim Woodsum now, lane 29, filling a spare.
Just 4.
Off target there to the right. Still a battle for second place. Actually, all 4 places.
Yeah, nothing is settled at this point.
17 pins separating everyone. Oh, a good 10.
Dave Driscoll from Somerville, Massachusetts. Works as a bookkeeper for U.S. Trust. Right through the heart. Just 3. Dave becomes our second bowler from Somerville this year. Tom Tamagna earlier was with us. 9 for Dave. Well, would you believe Joe Ashline has now gone 9 boxes without a mark?
He's facing a spare up there for the skin, too, put up by Joe Rollins.
Another single. Right back on target with that one to create the carryover. The 4th box will be worth $25 now. Joe Rollins, big ball for him. He's in 4th place right now, working on a spare. Pulled it. 6.
4 horsemen left. 1, 2, 4, and 7. Piece of wood between the 2 and the 4.
No, everything but the 2-pin. $9. Once again, a very close battle for second. That seems to be the pattern lately here on Candlepin Skins. And Jim Woodsum will have a 9-drop. Jim and his wife Joanne have 4 children: Greg, Chris, Craig, and Rachel. And there is a spare. In the 4th, taking the lead for the skin. Dave Driscoll, as you see, looking for his first mark in this second game. He ended game 1 with 2 in a row. Not quite.
Pretty good effort. Everything but the 7-pin. But he needs marks.
$10 this time. Brings up Joe Ashline working on the spare. Spare up leads for this skin for Jim Woodsum. $7, Phil.
Difficult spare. No wood to use at all in the plate, plus you got that sleeper, the 8-pin in the back.
Nope. Give the skin to Jim Woodsum. $25 this time. Brings him up to $150. And Joe leaves another pin standing. It's a $9. Well, I'll tell you what. Could get close for first here before too much longer. In fact, it already is. Put that fill on Jim Woodsum's spare, and it's going to be probably a single-digit deficit. Joe Rollins back on the head pin, and he'll have a spare set up. Joe had missed 3 single pins in the match already, but that one had a plank in front of it, so feeling a little confidence booster there. Jim on a spare. Big pocket hit, drops 8. And just a little too far to the right, or he would have had another spare. Next week in this time slot, next Saturday at 12 noon, begins our 4-week coverage of the New Hampshire All Events Candlepin Championships. Next week, we will begin our coverage with the Women's Championship. The format will be a little bit different than last year. For those of you who remember last year in our first go-around with the state tournament, we had the semifinal and the final for both the men and women. This year, we're televising just the finals, but we're making it a 6-game final match. Spare for Dave Driscoll, creating a possible carryover. So next week, unfortunately, we can't tell you who our finalists will be for the women or the men, because as of this moment, we don't know who they'll be. But the 2 remaining women's bowlers for the State All Events Championship will battle it out the next 2 Saturdays here in a 6-game total pinfall match. And then the following 2 weeks, the men's final. Also a 6-game, 2-week match. Carryover with spares for Joe Rollins and Dave Driscoll. 9 for Joe Ashline. And when we come back for our final 5 boxes here on Candlepin Skins, the 6th box will be worth $30, and not much has been settled. Close scores here on Candlepin Skins. Joe Rollins. And Joe.
It's a good break.
Well,
almost a strike.
How about that? Everything but the head pin.
That's a 9 fill on the spare. That's going to climb him right back into the total pinfall picture. Yes, sir.
Wow, boy, he has had a lot of 9 drops today. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 9 drops so far today. Jim Woodsum tumbles 8.
3 and 10. A couple pieces of wood behind the 3. No problem.
Spare, yes. Jim likes lane 30. He's marked all 3 times in this game on lane 30. Five of his 6 marks in the match have been on lane 30, in fact. Dave just can't break up the split.
That's a 6 fill on his spare, but he leaves himself, as Doug said, 3-6 on the right, 4-7 on the left.
Let's see. Oh, nice effort. $9 for Dave. Possible carryover with the 2 spares already on the board, and a near great shot here by Dave. Right behind the 4-pin. Joe Ashline does not strike. That means we will have yet another carryover. And Joe may lose his lead if he doesn't mark here, and he does not.
And you throw that ball and you jump the 3-pin up over the 5, even with a piece of wood behind the 5, which you'd think would help.
Joe has just 1 mark in the last 13 boxes, and he may lose his lead to Jim Woodsum, depending on the fill there. This thing is just wide open right now. Less than 20 pins separating all 4 bowlers with 4 boxes to go. And yet another 9 drop for Joe Rollins.
Next time he leaves the 10 pin. Missed this early in the match for a spare. Not this time, though.
Oh, he's right on it. That's 3 single pins in a row, all converted for spares. And Joe, who was in fourth, not a distant fourth, but in fourth for a while, now is all of a sudden threatening the lead.
Jim Woodson puts 8 on his spare. That'll give him the lead, at least temporarily. 2-5 left for another spare.
Yep.
Yes. He makes it 2 in a row.
All of a sudden, things have gotten very interesting here. We have not had any strikes in this match other than the double strike by Joe Ashline to start it. None of the other 3 bowlers has even 1 strike in the match. This is a $55 skin here in the 7th. 2 spares already up on the board. $8 for Dave Driscoll. And now Dave is running fourth. He's the only one that really hasn't been, well, he and Joe have not been able to keep up with Joe Rollins and Jim Woodsum with all the marks here in this game. Another split for Joe Ashline and another carryover.
Well, the wood, he's got a shot at 3-6, 4-7. Might throw the wood in front of the 4 and 7, though.
No.
He had to play the wood higher so he wouldn't do what I was describing, and when he did that, he left the 6 pin. It's that for a 10, but no mark.
We'll look at it again. Yeah, down closer to the 3 pin, you think might have had a shot, yeah. So yet another carryover. The 8th box goes now to $80.
Jim Woodsum is in the lead now by a pin, plus his bonus ball coming. Joe Rollins is got 5 in his spare. He's climbed to within 3 pins of Joe. Joe Ashline, that is.
And another mark.
4 in a row.
Wow. There's no way of telling how this is going to end right now. Jim Woodson has 2 marks in a row. And bidding for his first strike, he drops 9. Wow, that is Jim Woodson's 4th 9 drop of the day, and he's converted all of them for spares.
All of a sudden, is at 224, neck and neck with Joe Rollins. Joe Ashline at 204. He's yet to bowl the 8th frame, though.
Boy, Dave would love to see that 10 pin go, although maybe not. Maybe the wood and the 10 pin over there would create a brace for him.
Yeah, I think you have to use the wood on the right and see if you can get something moving from right to left.
He'll try it. Oh, had the idea.
Yes, he got it. Great shot.
That's a terrific shot. Great work by Dave Driscoll. 3 spares up here in the 8th, and Dave really needed that because he's running 4th right now. Here it is.
Cleared out 4 of them in a hurry. Then it took that 8 pin a little longer to go, but everybody's got marks up except Joe. Joe is working in the 8th frame now. A strike would win the skin.
Oh.
But not only that, he needs some kind of a mark.
Well, he kicked out the 5 pin, fortunately, giving himself at least a shot at this. With the wood. Oh, too high on the wood. Too high on the wood. So Joe will be open in the 8th. It's a 9 box. Well, maybe Joe used all his offense last week. He had a 323 for 2 games last week, a 174 closing game. Another carryover. You see the amount.
Well, this ball should put Joe, well, I was going to say ahead of Joe Ashline, Joe Rollins, but it's not going to. It's going to tie him up at 213.
So they'll be tied for 2nd.
Right.
Through the 8th box. And Joe Rollins' mark streak finally ends at 4 in a row.
Gotta forget about the skins here. We got how much is this
Yeah.
worth?
This is $105
Wow.
here in the 9th. Oh, if that's a 10, it could be an important pin. It's not going to go, though. It's a 9 for Joe. Every pin is going to be very critical here down the stretch. Jim Woodsum in the lead right now.
You can't afford to make any mistakes either. No, he's not.
big
He's
one.
not either. That's
First strike of the day for Jim Woodsum, and his 4th mark in a row, as Dan mentioned.
You've got to have the feeling that was going to happen sooner or later. He's been throwing some great 9-pin drops.
Well, you wait 8 years to come back. You want to bowl well.
That's right, yeah. You don't want to rush right into those strikes either. This is a fill for Dave Driscoll after that great spare he made in the 8th frame. 7 fill, 1-7-10 left. Got a chance here. Actually needs this.
Yeah, he really does. Well, certainly you'd rather shoot at that with the wood than without. But it didn't really help him much in that instance.
So Jim Woodsum has taken control of this match now as far as first place goes. But second place is, you can see, up in the air.
Right now, it's Joe Rollins, but remember, Joe Ashline still has to bowl, and a 10 would put Joe 1 pin ahead for second place. So a mark would be big right here for Joe, and he knows it. He has only 1 mark in this second game. Oh, my. The drought continues. And give the skin for $105 to Jim Woodsum. He's going to be our big money winner today.
He's the only one that's won any skin in the second game.
A hard 10 for Joe Ashline.
There you see, jumps 1 pin ahead of Joe Rollins, going to the final frame for that number 2 spot.
$50 skin and second place up for grabs.
And not out of it is Dave Driscoll. Probably going to need a double strike, but
Oh, big ball there for Joe Rollins.
Huge.
His first strike of the day. And it comes in the 10th box of game 2 with second place on the line. How about that? 1 3-pocket hit, and he just had to wait for the 5 and the 8. Important ball here. Could force Joe into a double strike situation, or at least a double mark situation. Spare on strike for Joe Rollins. 242. Joe Ashline will need a mark and a 9 to tie.
the strike is up for the last skin, a $50 skin in the 10th frame.
Oh, Jim Woodsum, almost a double strike. By the way, that strike spare for Joe Rollins mathematically eliminated Dave Driscoll. Best he can do now is 240, so Dave is out of it in terms of pinfall, but we still have a $50 skin to decide here. Joe Rollins leads that race with his strike.
148 plus a ball coming in the 10th frame for Jim Woodsum.
Jim has just had a great finish here. Let that ball get away a little bit, but look at this. Everything working right for him. 157 for a two-game total of 273. And how about the last 5 boxes?
Come on, Dave, go strike.
96 pins in the last 5 boxes. Dave Driscoll out of it in terms of pinfall, but would love to throw a strike here. He does not. Now he's going to have to count on Joe Ashline to throw one. I'm sure Joe would love to throw one.
Yeah.
He needs a mark. How many times? This is 5 or 6 weeks in a row we've come down to the last box to decide second place. An 8 for Dave Driscoll, 104, and a 2-game total of 218. So it's all up to Joe Ashline. He needs 19 pins to tie for second. Well, it won't be a strike, so the last skin of the day, watch out, the last skin of the day goes to Joe Rollins for $50. only the second skin he's won today. Joe Ashline must have this mark. And he's got it.
Still alive. 9 to tie, a strike to win.
Wow. That's only his second mark in the last 17 boxes. And now he needs at least 9. 9 for an overtime, strike for the win. Not enough. 5-108 and a 2-game total of 238. So it'll be Jim Woodsum in first, Joe Rollins in second, and we will check all the numbers for you back on Candlepin Skins after these words. Back here on Candlepin Skins, and I think coming into this match, Dan, looking at the two guys who ended up finishing 1-2, Jim Woodsum hadn't been with us for 8 years back in the area, wanted to make a good impression. He certainly did that. And Joe Rollins, who was talking to me off the air prior to the show, he wanted to make up for subpar bowling the last time he was here. They both bowled great down the stretch, and they had enough to get in qualifying.
Well, that's it. I was talking to Joe, and Joe Ashline, he said he ran out of gas. Well, Jim Woodsum was well rested because he hasn't been here for 8 years. So naturally, he was going to come out on top.
That's right. That's right. Good scouting. Let's check the scores here. First of all, it's total pinfall going to Jim Woodsum as he came up with that big 157 with 5 marks in a row to close it out, 273. And then Joe Rollins just edging out Joe Ashline by 4 pins. Joe Rollins had 5 marks in the last 6 boxes to come from behind and grab second. Joe Ashline and Dave Driscoll will have to join us another time. And as for the prize money, well, Jim Woodsum, the big winner there, too, $255. That seems to be the pattern. We've had a lot of big money winners the last few weeks. All right, time to look ahead now. First of all, tomorrow at 12 noon, it'll be week 3 of the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. That'll be from Park Place Lanes in Wyndham. And then, Dan, next Saturday, starting here at 12 noon from Londonderry, we will have the New Hampshire All-Events State Candlepin Championship, the women's version first.
That's right. I wish we could tell you who they are, but that elimination is still taking place as we speak.
So we'll have the 2 contestants next Saturday at 12 noon for the New Hampshire State Women's Championship. And don't forget tomorrow for our Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. Until then, for Dan Murphy and the whole crew, I'm Doug Brown. Thanks for watching, everybody.